The wind howled like a wounded beast across the Montana plains that night, carrying with it a bitter cold that could slice through even the thickest coat. Snow fell in wild, furious sheets, erasing the world in white. Inside a small log cabin that stood stubbornly against the storm, a man named Eli Turner sat near the fire, his weathered hands wrapped around a steaming tin cup of coffee. Eli had been alone for years now, too long maybe. A quiet rancher with a past full of scars, he had buried his wife and his dreams long ago under the same frozen earth that now lay hidden beneath the snowdrifts. He wasn't expecting company, but fate has a way of showing up uninvited, and sometimes it knocks when you least expect it. That night, it didn't knock, it screamed. A faint cry rose above the roar of the wind, a woman's voice, distant but desperate. Eli froze. For a second he thought he was imagining it, another ghost haunting his sleepless nights. But the cry came again, weaker this time, and something inside him, a piece of humanity he thought had died, stirred awake. Grabbing his lantern and coat, Eli pushed open the cabin door. The cold slapped him like a punishment, snow instantly biting at his face and beard. He could barely see 5 feet ahead, but he followed that sound, stumbling through the drifts until the light of his lantern fell upon a shape half buried in snow near his fence. It was a woman, pale, trembling, her clothes torn and soaked through. Her lips were blue, her eyes barely open. Eli dropped to his knees, brushing the snow from her face. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She didn't respond. Without thinking twice, he lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, and cold as ice. He carried her back to the cabin, slamming the door against the storm behind him. He laid her gently near the fire, stripped off her wet coat, and wrapped her in his wool blanket. Her fingers were stiff, her breathing shallow. "Don't you die on me," he muttered, rubbing her hands, trying to bring life back into them. After a few long minutes, she coughed, a fragile sound, but a sign of life. Eli sighed in relief. He fetched hot water, poured a bit of whiskey into it, and pressed the tin cup to her lips. "Drink," he whispered. She obeyed weakly, her eyes flickering open for the first time. They were green, stormy, frightened eyes that held too many secrets. Where am I?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're safe," Eli said. "You're in my cabin. I found you outside." She looked around, confused, shivering violently. "The coach, it broke down. The driver left me. He said he'd be back, but—" Her voice broke, tears mingling with the frost on her cheeks. Eli's jaw clenched. "He left you out there in this?" She nodded slowly. "Said I was trouble. Said my husband didn't want me after all." The words hit Eli like a fist. "Your husband?" he asked carefully. "Who's your husband?" She swallowed hard. "Mr. Clarence Pike. The man I was supposed to marry. I came from St. Louis. I was a mail-order bride." Eli's stomach turned. Clarence Pike, his neighbor, if you could call him that. A man known for his cruelty and temper, especially toward women. "Pike's ranch is a day's ride from here," Eli said. "You mean to tell me he sent for you, then left you out there to freeze?" She nodded again, trembling. "He saw me, said I wasn't what he expected. He told the driver to take me back, but the driver's horse spooked in the storm. Then he just left me there." Eli cursed under his breath. He looked at her again, her face pale but soft, her eyes full of a fear she was trying to hide. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Clara," she whispered. "Clara Whitmore." "Well, Clara Whitmore," Eli said, placing another log on the fire. "You're safe now. You'll stay here till the storm's done. Then we'll figure things out." She tried to smile, but tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Eli stared at the flames. "Because once, someone helped me when I didn't deserve it. Guess I owe the favor forward." The firelight flickered, painting their faces in shades of gold and orange. Hours passed. Eli made her soup, tended the fire, and gave her his own bed while he sat by the door, rifle in hand, watching the storm. But even through the howling wind, he couldn't shake the feeling that the storm wasn't the only danger out there. Clarence Pike wasn't the kind of man who liked being embarrassed, and if he knew where his bride had gone, he might come looking. Morning came pale and grey, the blizzard easing to a quiet snowfall. Clara was awake, her cheeks a little less pale. She thanked him softly, voice trembling. Eli made coffee, poured her a cup and said, "You don't have to go back there, you know." She looked up, confused. But I have nowhere else." He gave a small smile. "Then maybe you start over. Everyone deserves a second chance." For the first time since he'd found her, she smiled. A fragile, grateful smile that hit him deeper than he expected. That morning, while the sun tried to break through the clouds, something changed in that small cabin. Two broken souls, both abandoned by life, found warmth not just in the fire, but in each other's presence. Eli didn't know it yet, but the woman he saved from the snow would soon thaw the ice around his heart. And Clara, lost, betrayed, forgotten, would find something she never believed she'd have again, a home. Outside, the last flakes of snow drifted down like feathers. Inside, the fire burned bright, and hope, quiet, fragile, stubborn, flickered to life once more. If you believe in second chances, love that heals, and stories that touch your heart, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because this journey is just beginning. The snow had stopped, but the silence it left behind was heavy, almost sacred. The world outside Eli Turner's cabin looked like a painting, white plains stretching into the horizon, trees bending under the weight of ice. Inside, life had returned in small but certain ways. The fire crackled softly, the smell of coffee filled the room, and Clara Whitmore, once half dead in his arms, now sat wrapped in a blanket, her eyes fixed on the glowing embers, as if they held the answers to everything she'd lost. Eli had spent the morning fixing the roof, feeding the horses, and checking the traps he'd set before the storm. When he came back inside, he saw her standing by the window, her reflection soft in the frost-glazed glass. She looked fragile still, but there was strength in her now, a quiet determination. "You shouldn't be up yet," Eli said, setting his gloves aside. Clara smiled faintly. "I can't just sit and do nothing. You've done so much for me already." "You do the same," he said simply. She looked away. "I used to think people like you didn't exist anymore." Eli chuckled low. "People like me? I ain't sure what kind that is. The kind that still has a heart," she said softly. Her words hit deeper than she knew. For years, Eli had lived with ghosts. His wife's laughter, the echo of a child's cry that never came, the weight of a past he couldn't undo. But Clara's presence had stirred something alive in him again, something dangerous, something warm. The days passed quietly. Clara began to regain her strength, helping with small chores, mending shirts, sweeping the floor, cooking simple meals. She hummed softly while she worked, her voice a fragile melody that filled the lonely cabin. Eli found himself lingering longer inside, pretending to fix things just to hear her hum. The storm had brought her to his doorstep, but what it left behind was harder to explain. Then one afternoon, while Eli was splitting wood out back, he saw a black figure riding through the snow. His blood ran cold. Only one man rode with that arrogance, that dark hat tilted low over a cruel smirk. Clarence Pike. Eli set down the axe and wiped his hands, his jaw tightening. Pike dismounted near the gate, his boots crunching in the snow. "Turner!" he shouted. "I heard you've been keeping something that belongs to me." Eli didn't move. "Don't think a man can belong to another man, Pike. And I sure as hell don't think a woman does." Pike's smirk widened, revealing yellowed teeth. "You're a fool, Turner. That girl's mine by contract. I paid for her passage. She was supposed to be my wife." Eli took a step forward. "She told me what you did. You left her to die out there." Pike laughed. "She wasn't what I ordered. Too soft, too pretty, too much trouble." Eli's fists clenched. "You left a human being to freeze in a blizzard. And I'll do worse if she doesn't come back with me right now," Pike said, his hand brushing against the revolver at his hip. Eli didn't back down. "You'll do nothing of the sort," Pike sneered. "You always thought you were better than the rest of us, Turner, the lonely hero with a conscience. Well, let's see if your conscience can stop a bullet." The sound of a gun being cocked sliced the silence. Clara had stepped outside. Her voice shook, but her eyes didn't waver. "Don't," she said. "Don't you dare." Pike's eyes narrowed. "You keep quiet, girl. You're coming with me." "No," she said firmly. "I'd rather die here than live another second with you." Pike took a step toward her, fury twisting his face. Eli moved faster than he'd thought possible. In one motion he grabbed his rifle from the porch, aimed and fired, not to kill, but to warn. The bullet hit the snow inches from Pike's boots, sending up a spray of ice. "Get off my land!" Eli growled, his voice low and deadly. Pike's face turned red. "This isn't over, Turner. You'll regret this." "Maybe," Eli said, "but not today." Pike spat on the ground, glared at Clara, and turned his horse around. The black figure rode off into the distance, swallowed by the endless white. For a long time neither of them spoke. The wind whispered through the trees, and the only sound was Clara's soft breathing. Finally she said, "He'll come back." Eli nodded. "I know." "Then you should send me away," she said quietly. "I brought you nothing but trouble." Eli looked at her for a long moment. "Clara," he said, "you didn't bring trouble. Trouble just followed you. And I've faced worse than Pike before." She tried to protest, but the look in his eyes stopped her. It wasn't pity, it was conviction. A man who'd lost everything now had something worth protecting again. Days turned into weeks. The snow melted slowly, giving way to muddy roads and thawing rivers. Pike didn't return, not yet, but the fear of his shadow lingered. Still, life went on. Clara began to smile again. She learned to ride a horse, to gather eggs, to laugh at Eli's rough jokes. And Eli, for the first time in years, found peace in another person's company. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Clara sat by the porch, her hair catching the last golden light. "You ever think about leaving this place?" she asked. Eli shrugged. "Used to. Now I don't see much reason to." "Why not?" she asked softly. He looked at her. "Because everything I want's right here." She blushed and looked away, pretending to adjust the shawl around her shoulders. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not? It's true." She smiled, but her eyes shone with something deeper. Fear, hope, love, all tangled together. That night, as the stars came out and the air turned cool, Clara whispered, "Eli, thank you for saving me." He shook his head. "You saved me just as much, Clara. But peace doesn't last forever." A week later, Eli found tracks near the stream, fresh hoofprints leading toward the ridge. Pike had come back. That night, Clara woke to the sound of dogs barking. Eli was already up, rifle in hand. "Stay inside," he said. "No," she whispered, grabbing his arm. "Don't go out there alone." He gave her a small smile. "I'm not alone anymore." Outside, shadows moved between the trees. Pike had brought 2 men with him, guns drawn. Eli took cover behind the woodpile. "You're trespassing again, Pike," he called out. "Last warning." Pike's voice echoed through the night. "You can't hide forever, Turner. I'll burn this place to the ground if I have to." Then came the gunfire, loud, sharp, deadly. Eli fired back, the night exploding with sound. Sparks flew as bullets hit the cabin walls. Clara screamed, ducking for cover, her heart pounding. Minutes felt like hours until silence fell again. Eli stepped out cautiously, smoke rising from the barrel of his rifle. Pike lay wounded near the fence, his gun in the snow. The other men had fled. "You should have stayed away," Eli said. Pike spat blood, glaring. "You think you can take what's mine and get away with it?" Eli's voice was calm, steady. "She was never yours." Pike reached for his gun, but Eli kicked it away. "You've got a choice, Pike," Eli said. "Ride away and never come back, or stay and finish what you started." Pike looked up at him, hatred burning in his eyes, but he saw something else, too. Strength, resolve, a man who'd lost everything once and wasn't about to lose again. Pike cursed under his breath, grabbed his reins, and rode off into the darkness. Eli watched until the sound of hooves faded. When he turned back, Clara was standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's over," he said softly. She ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. He held her close, feeling the tremor of her heartbeat against his chest. "You're safe now," he whispered. "We both are." The first light of dawn broke over the mountains, washing the land in gold. The snow was melting fast now, rivers running clear again. For the first time in years, Eli felt something he'd forgotten: peace. Clara stood beside him, her hand in his, and together they watched the sun rise over a world reborn. Sometimes love doesn't come easy. Sometimes it comes crawling through the snow, half dead and half hope. But when it finds you, it changes everything. Eli Turner had found his purpose again, not in revenge, not in survival, but in kindness, courage, and love. And Clara Whitmore, the woman left to die in a blizzard, had found not just a savior, but a home, a family, and a man who saw her worth beyond all measure. If this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional stories like this. Your support keeps these tales alive.